In this video, I'll show you how to automate topic and keyword research for SEO using AI agents. Plus, I'll show you the new way to do keyword research, which is focused on topics, versus the old way, which is focused on keywords. I'll even show you my process for validating topic and keyword ideas, which I applied to this recent project, which got some pretty nice uppy charts. So this is the Topic Backlog Agent, and it is built with N8N. In this workflow, it handles incoming data, it feeds it to a topic research agent, which creates the topics, and then it sends it out to Airtable. And then in my Airtable, I have all of these records with the backlog status, and these were all created by the agent. By default, all of these topics are really relevant to my website, and that's thanks to this content configuration node in N8N. This is a document that explains the website, what it's focusing on, what the source context is, the central search intent, and this agent is currently running 24/7 doing keyword research for me. I currently have it set to run every hour, but I could set it to run every minute or even every second if I wanted to. And then this is the topic revision agent. It's very similar, but it handles a couple of if-then scenarios. The use case for this is when you go in to review your backlogged items. Sometimes you're not happy with what you get and you want to change it. All you need to do for those cases is change the status to backlog revision and pop in some notes with what you want to change, and it's going to make those changes for you. And there's two great features about this agent which helps it avoid keyword cannibalization. First of all, it's going to check the existing records that are in my Airtable. So if I've already covered a certain topic, it's going to eliminate that from its research. Next up, it also has a Google search function, so it will do a site search to see if there's any topics on the website which exist and just aren't in my Airtable yet. That acts as a failsafe for projects where not everything is going to be in Airtable. And then in the revision agent, it handles a few if-then scenarios on the feedback. It can fix a current record and revise the fields on it. If the revision agent finds a keyword conflict, it will update the current record status to cannibal review, and then it will add notes to the existing record about the topic that could have potentially cannibalized with it, so that you can still cover those queries without creating a new page. And if it finds a page that isn't added into Airtable yet, it will add it for you. So let's get into how these agents work together, how to automate topic and keyword research. The first step is a schedule trigger, which I have set to run every hour. The next step is to find categories in production in my Airtable. And I do that by having a categories tab. Then in my categories tab, I have a research status field, which has a couple different options. Off means that we're not going to make any content in this category. Core section means that we're focusing exclusively on the core section of the topical map, which basically means we're building out monetizable pages. For the context of this site, that would be like best software type listicles, but for different types of sites like a software site, your core section would be your features pages. If you're an e-commerce site, the core section would be your product category and product pages. If you're a service-based business, your core section is going to be your service pages and sometimes your location landing pages. Pretty much anything that makes money is core section of the topical map. Then we have the outer section option. The outer section is where your historical data comes from. It's largely informational content sources. You might know that as your blog or your insights, your posts, pretty much any content that you create with the intention of getting traffic, which doesn't have direct buyer intent, is going to be your outer section of your topical map. For example, an invoicing software might create content about how to get paid faster. Getting paid faster is closely related to invoicing software, but if somebody is searching for information about getting their invoices paid faster, they're in more of an information gathering state. They're not in the middle or bottom of the funnel where they're ready to shop around for software. Then the third option is core and outer section. That basically means anything goes and you can create content in either category. And I can actually run multiple categories at the same time. So in my setup, one category is basically one topical map. The topical map that I'm building out currently is all about remote work. So any content I can monetize, like the best software to use or the best home office setups, that's going to be core section. And then anything informational like a remote work policy template, that's going to be outer section. So right now I'm focusing on the outer section, which is largely informational topics with the goal of establishing historical data and increasing my topical coverage. These are all semantic SEO terms coming from the world of topical authority. If you want to learn more about semantic SEO, I recommend checking out Corey's teachings, his videos, and his course, Topical Authority. A lot of those concepts helped me change my mindset to the new topic-focused approach, and it helped me move away from the old keyword-focused approach. I'll get into more detail about both of those approaches in a few minutes. For now, let's stick with the agents. So back to the categories, I can actually have multiple categories on at the same time. And because my agent runs in a loop, that means that we'll do one per category. So if I have 3 categories on, it's going to create one topic per category. It'll do them one at a time. It'll just create one topic, go back to the loop, and then do the next category's topic. When it finishes going through all categories that are turned on, it goes back to waiting for the next hour or minute or whatever I have the interval set to. Next up, I split this into 2 steps and then I merge it back together. Step 1 is checking for existing records in my category. So that is an Airtable search function. And what it's doing is pulling up all of the records in my Airtable base that are in that category. That way the agent downstream has a reference of what topics we've already created so that it can exclude those from its ideation phase. Next up, I'm also pulling in a list of all my available content types. I'll get into content types when I show you my validation method, but basically there's a bunch of different types of content, and you want to make sure that the page you create is the correct content type. A really simple example would be for a search where people are expecting to get individual products. So they're expecting to pull up a product page, and you are trying to rank with a category page. That is a mismatch in the content type. So basically a content type is a search intent crystallized into a template. In semantic SEO, there's a term called query templates, and it's kind of the same methodology. You want to templatize certain types of content. That makes it easier to write, and it even makes it easier for Google to index your content. Because if your content types are following consistent templates, it makes it cheaper and more efficient to index your content, so it lowers your cost of retrieval, which is a huge goal in semantic SEO. When you make your content cheap and easy to index and rank, you get an advantage over other sites that are messier, and Google has to spend more compute to crawl and index them. And then we're going to get the content configuration. This is a really important Google Doc that gives the agent all of the context it needs to correctly do topic research about this website. Here's my Google Doc for the agent. I've got another video that explains how to make these documents. This is actually also created with an agent, which is called the Brand Research Agent. But basically it has high-level information about what this brand is, what it's about, the source context, the central entity, the central search intent, some historical information, key competitors, and any other information that might help the AI do better topic research. This way, when the agent receives the task, it's already got a lot to work with. It's got information about who it's doing research for. It's got a list of all of the existing topics that we've already got in our backlog or already created. And it's got a list of content types to choose from so that it can properly categorize each topic that it creates. Now let's take a look at the agent. So this agent has 3 components. It's got an OpenAI chat model, which is the brains of the agent. Then it's got 2 tools. The first one is Google Search, which is very important for doing its research. We want to make sure that it's pulling up top-ranking search results instead of relying on its training data. Then we've got a structured output parser, which is important because it creates the JSON that Airtable needs to create and modify the fields. My OpenAI chat model is set to GPT-5 mini, but I can actually change that to any model that I want. It just has to be one of the models that has tool access. And you can also swap out OpenAI with other models. You can use Gemini or Claude as long as it has tool access. Next up, here's the agent's inputs and prompts. So the input is really simple. I'm just giving it the existing records and the content types to choose from. And then the prompt itself is housed in a system message. I spent many hours creating and customizing this prompt to ensure that it handles cannibalization cases well and produces great topics. Then when it's done, it adds it to the backlog through an Airtable create node, and it gives it all of the fields that we created. Then it goes back into the loop. Then if it had another category to write about, it would go ahead and do that one next. When it's out of categories, it has nothing left to do, so it just waits for the schedule trigger to run it again. Now I'll show you some executions so you can see what the runs actually look like when this app is running. So let's look at the most recent execution. If I go to the topic research agent, you can see the output right here. And the topic it found was called How to Succeed in a Remote Internship. So if I go to the bottom of my Airtable, I should see that popping up right here. So taking a look at this record, we've got the title, the keyword, the status, the category, the content type. It also populates the search intent, the page title, and the URL slug and the meta description. Now I'll walk you through my topic validation process. It would be silly to just publish all of these pages just because an AI came up with the idea. What we want to do is be the human in the loop and validate all of these ideas before changing their status to production. The process is really easy, and along the way, I'll explain the difference between the old keyword-focused approach and the new topic-focused approach, and why the topic-focused approach works a lot better for modern-day SEO. So the first step is I'm just going to take this keyword and I'm going to pop it into Google search. I use the Ahrefs Chrome extension. So that's this Ahrefs toolbar. I highly recommend using Ahrefs as well as their Chrome extension because it's incredibly useful for topic validation. If you don't have Ahrefs, you can still do this process with SEMrush or other keyword research tools, maybe even the Google Keyword Planner. Ahrefs is just my go-to tool. So most importantly, I have my toolbar set to the United States because I want to see the US search results. I'm actually located in Canada. When I'm working with clients in other countries, I'll also change this to customize the search results to their country. Now we're Googling the proposed keyword, how to succeed in a remote internship, and it's localized to the United States. And this keyword specifically does not have any search volume, so I already know that it's going to be a revision, and now I need to try and find what I want to revise it to. And there might not be any search demand for this topic, so in some cases I won't make the topic at all, I won't revise it either. So the first result here is Reddit, but under the ST label, that means that this page does not get any search traffic. So I'm basically looking for a page that has decent search traffic that is on this topic. And as you can see all over page 1, there is not much. And there's already a lot of sites competing for this keyword, even though there's hardly any volume. But on page 2, I did find this one here, Remote Internships, All You Need to Know, and it has 376 site traffic. So that's not bad. We can work with that. So the next step is I'm going to look at the keywords that this page is ranking for. To do that, I click on the keywords and it pulls it up for me in Ahrefs. You can also pop the URL into Site Explorer and go to the organic keywords. And there's other tools that will also show you keywords and rankings by page. SEMrush does this as well. The next thing that I want to see is that this page is viable and it's increasing in traffic and rankings. This one here is ranking for more keywords and it's increasing over time. That means that this topic, remote internships, is a really good content opportunity. We had a slightly wrong angle of how to succeed in a remote internship. Looking at the keywords this ranks for, I'll filter it to the United States, and it's ranking for keywords like what is a remote internship? Remote internships meaning that tells me that if I want to rank, I need to have a general guide on this topic. If I get too nuanced, like how to succeed in a remote internship, which is actually a subtopic of this guide, then I'm not going to be able to capitalize on any of the search demand. And I'm going to be competing with all of these other websites that created blogs basically on the same topic of how to succeed in a remote internship, where in reality, the only solid opportunity here is for an ultimate guide just for remote internships in general. It's really important to get the search intent and search demand correct here. If I create an ultimate guide on remote internships in general, I can succeed on a lot of broad terms because there isn't a ton of search demand on this topic right now. If I make my page too nuanced, I become ineligible to show up as an ultimate guide because the search intent is slightly different here. Remote internships is everything that you need to know about remote internships. And how to succeed in a remote internship is exclusively for people who are taking a remote internship. The difference here is that companies may also be searching for this term, remote internships. They might be wanting to know if it's a good idea or not. So that is a much broader context. And in a case like this, that broader context is the only thing with search demand. Search demand means that there's a bunch of keywords that are all pretty similar and they all have decent search volume. And this is the new way to do topic research in action. The old way to do keyword research is just to type in your main keyword or a bunch of different keywords. You find a bunch of matching terms around remote internships. And historically, how keyword research has been done for a long time is people would download all of these ideas and then either cluster them manually or use a clustering tool to try and figure out what keywords should go to what pages. The new way is basically doing that in reverse. Instead of trying to find a bunch of keywords and then trying to figure out what pages they should go to, we simply find the root topic, which is the page that it should go to, and then we can verify the keywords and queries that are going to work good for that page. This method is much simpler and it's much faster, and it allows you to focus on the things that matter most, which is getting the search intent correct and getting the content type correct, and figuring out the exact angle that you need to approach your content with in order to ensure that your topics actually rank. And then we're using live search results to validate our ideas. This whole list of keywords around remote internships is basically the ingredients for a few pages. And instead of using our brains and software to try and figure out what keywords should go where in order to create a topic, we just do it backwards and we come up with a topic idea and validate it as needed. When you're using AI agents to come up with all the topic ideas for you, all you have to do is some quick validation checks to make quick changes to your topics. And that doesn't even add more time to the equation, because even when you come up with a topic idea from the old method, you still need to validate it. You can basically just skip all of the keyword collecting steps and instead focus on a topic, knowing that if you find the right topic, you're going to rank for a wide variety of keywords that are closely related to that topic. So here is all I need to do to give the AI the feedback that it needs. I just write that it should be an ultimate guide on remote internships, like this URL here, in the notes field, and then I change the status to backlog revision. And that is all that I need to do, because the revision agent is looking for any records that have the backlog revision status. The revision agent will run automatically on my schedule, but I'll run it manually this time so you can see it in action. So I'm running it manually and we can see that it found the remote internship record and it's working its way through the process. It quickly checked for existing records and it pulled up the content types. That only took a few seconds. And then it read the content configuration documents. The revision agent has a slightly different prompt so that it can handle all of these scenarios. For this run, it revised the current record. So now if I go back to Airtable, we can see that this record was changed. And now it's updated the record and it's even added some notes for me, which will be helpful when I go to generate the content. When I'm happy with this record, I just change the status to production, and then my content writing engine will take over and write the page for me. I also have workflows set up to write the page, put it into Google Docs, which allows me to review and edit the document before publishing it. Then I also have automans that publish it to my WordPress site for me, and I even have an automation that creates featured images. So I'm pretty much automating as much of the content production process as I can. In the near future, I'll also automate content updates and even link building. Let's look at a few more examples so that you understand the process. Over the course of making this video, my agent actually created a new record for me, so let's take a look at this one. Our keyword is Slack best practices for remote teams. So let's go ahead and Google that. It looks like there's some search volume here, and there's a couple of different sites getting traffic for this keyword. This one is interesting too, because your eye might be drawn to this one, which has the most traffic, the ultimate guide to remote working team collaboration. And it's published by Slack, but that's actually misleading because it's not solely focused on how to actually use Slack for your remote team. And there's this one here, Your Guide to Working Remotely in Slack, also published by Slack, and it has 54 site traffic, which is to me also not a very good option because it's published by Slack. The one that stands out to me to reference is the one by Medium, because this is a third party from Slack, and they're still ranking and getting traffic. So let's look at their keywords. Looking at their traffic, they're ranking for a bunch of Slack etiquette and Slack best practices keywords. It's fairly consistent. They're not rapidly increasing in traffic or decreasing. This one's kind of just humming along, but there is clearly search demand here. What's standing out for me is just Slack best practices in general. It does look like Slack best practices for remote teams would work. And this post is also ranking for a couple of other remote team type queries. And because there is search demand for the remote teams angle, and my site is specifically about remote teams, that's actually the name of the site and the category I'm working in, I definitely have the home field advantage if I stick to the remote teams angle. So I'm actually just going to keep this one as is and move it into production. It's a keeper. The agent found this topic for me, and it's a good topic, and I didn't even need to change anything. You might be wondering if it's worth it to go through all of this effort for every individual topic. I definitely think it's worth it. I'm very careful about the pages that I make. I never want to make a page that I don't need, and I never want to create a cannibalization issue. Creating only the pages that mattered and fixing cannibalization issues is actually how I was able to help this site. It went from around 100K traffic, and now it's just going absolutely crazy. Keyword research wasn't the only thing we did for this site, but this type of careful planning and topic research process is exactly what I was doing when I was planning the content for that site. But back then, I didn't have these cool agents to help me do it. Let's look at another one here, home office soundproofing. So we'll just pop that into Google. And already there's some mixed search intent here. We've got shopping. So there's people who might just be shopping for soundproofing for their home office. And there's people looking for guidance on how to soundproof their home office. And those are the two top search results in the US. We've got a Reddit post on soundproofing your home office. And then we've got an IKEA page that's selling soundproofing equipment. So now let's look at the keywords that the Reddit page is ranking for. It's all basically keywords around how to soundproof your home office. So looking at my record, the only thing that it really got wrong was the content type. It picked guide. I actually have a separate content type for how to. Changing the content type from a general guide to a how-to guide will make it slightly better. These content types actually have templates behind them, so when I change the content type, I'm also changing the template of how it's going to produce the content. And then the other one is the mention of Zoom. I don't use Zoom and I don't really like it. And looking at these keywords, there's no mention of Zoom anywhere. So home office soundproofing, budget fixes for quiet calls, which is also a fun angle, which is soundproofing on a budget. And it's an informational how-to guide. And I'm just going to take other mentions of Zooms out of here. So you get the idea. The agent ideates for you and creates a backlog. You validate the ideas. You'll either send it in for feedback or make quick changes yourself on the fly. That's all there is to it. It's an easy and efficient way to expand your topical map and get more coverage on the main queries you're going for. In some cases, if it did find a cannibalization issue, it would deal with those scenarios separately. For example, the revision agent can find existing pages on your site that aren't added to your Airtable, and it'll just add them for you. If it finds a cannibal, all it's going to do is add notes to the main topic saying, hey, you should cover this topic as well, and it'll mark the cannibal topic for deletion. It doesn't actually delete them, it just allows you to review them. There's an extra status called cannibal review. And if I find a page that I don't want to make, I can use this status, reviewed do not make. And I'll typically put a quick note in there as well, because we do want to still keep ideas that we don't want to make. That way the agent knows not to try making that topic again. Maybe there's no search demand. Maybe it's just not a good fit for your site. It is still good to log it so that you have a record that you already looked at that keyword. So that is exactly how I automated topic and keyword research using AI agents. It's going to make SEO a lot easier. I'll be setting up keyword research agents to run in the background for all of my clients and projects so that I can use my brain juice for other things. And all I have to do is quickly validate ideas and pick which ones I want to schedule for production. It's also important to keep those nuances into consideration, especially around topic selection, search demand, and avoiding cannibalization. You want to make sure that you get the right content type, and you definitely want to be looking at the live search results to figure out what types of pages you should make. This is all part of a connected system. I have agents that write the content, upload the content, create images. I'll be building an agent that updates old content, and I'll even build agents that do internal linking for me. So I'll try to automate as much of SEO as I can. That's it for this video. Hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.